Welcome back to the Donkey Vote Political Podcast. Today we are joined again by Mathew Hilakari. I think it's just over 12 months since we had our interview with you just after you won the seat of Point Cook in the 2022 state election. So it's great to have you back on the podcast. So welcome back.
It's great to be back for an anniversary,
Yeah,
so to speak.
We're gonna keep this going every year.
Yeah, so this is a tradition. It's all like a pre-Christmas tradition
Yeah,
going on.
We come into your office, just have a little interview here and there. Talk about the issues of Point Cook.
Yeah, terrific, fantastic. Well, go ahead for it.
Yeah, so I think in our last interview we did talk a little bit about yourself. But yeah, if you could remind the audience a little bit about yourself quickly before we get started with our questions, that'd be great.
Certainly. So I'm the now almost just over a year elected as a member for Point Cook, which has been a really great honour. The community itself comes across Altona Meadows and Seabrook and Point Cook and Werribee South, and I think we talked about at the time just the diversity of the community. So both the population in terms of multicultural population, but diversity of experiences that people have. So, from Werribee South, the great farming community, where 10% of Victoria's agriculture or vegetables come from, all the way through to Altona Meadows, really traditional Western working class suburb, and Point Cook itself. And we know we're sitting here right now where 50 people lived in 1996 and 70,000 live today. So, it's a great community, and pleased to be back on the podcast. Get on to the questions, I say.
All right, then.
What have we got? Hard hitting.
Maybe not as tricky as last time.
Okay.
Because last time was a lot more on policy. This is more towards yourself personally.
Okay,
So
fantastic.
We'll start.
We've got some big changes going on for people right at this point in time.
Exactly. That's why we brought these questions up. So firstly, how was your high school and university life, and do you have any specific memorable moments?
Yeah, certainly. So we're just is this podcast going out this week, next week?
It's a bit iffy.
It's a bit iffy. It depends on how fast George can edit.
So when it goes out, the moment in time that we exist on right now is just as BCE results have come out, and we've talked before we started filming. We talked a little bit about great results, and the opportunities and ambitions that people want to have for their future. And my high school was a state school, Templestowe College, and it was very good. Well, it was probably mid-good.
I think you did talk about this last time.
Yeah, and then dropped a little bit away, and then it's become one of those really sought after schools again, which is really great. And I don't know if I mentioned, did I talk a little bit about history at the time?
About under Cabinet government.
Yeah, well, I'll talk about history, the subject.
Oh, history the subject.
So, so one of the challenges for all high schools, particularly BCE level, is what subjects do you offer?
Yeah.
And one of the subjects that I really wanted to do was history. So I started out really as a maths and science was a sort of subjects that I was good at and kept doing, and accelerated maths and did some Year 12 maths in Year 11, and did some of those things to just sort of make BCE a little bit more manageable. And but they didn't offer history. And we were just a normal sized school, but pretty important. And so I went and saw the principal and I said, "Oh, how do I get history run in our school?" She said, "Well, find 15 other people, and we can run it because we've got a teacher who's qualified to run it." I said, "Great." So like a good organizer, somebody who works in politics now, went and organised, got 15 people. Some of them were convinced that it was a good subject for them. Some of them were just convinced by me that they should do it. And so we went back to the principal and said, "Well, here's our 15 people and let's run the course." So then we ran History Revolutions for the first time at the high school, and it was a very long time between it running before and then. So that really helped me along, and saw that, like for many people, one person, couple of people getting organised can go and change their environment around them, even in small ways. But I love that about high school, that you can do that. So if anyone who's going into Year 10, thinking about 11 and 12, Year 9, they should think about what they want to do and how their school can operate.
Yeah.
Because you should try and do the courses that you want to do, and that's a challenge that still exists in the education system now. And I talk about that, principles, because I remember my own history and experience on it. I want to make sure that other people, have that opportunity to do the subjects that they want.
Yeah.
Do we want to get onto university or?
Yeah, you can go on to university.
Yeah. So we
we'll just let you blabber on a little bit more.
I'll blabber on a bit. Yeah. That's good. Okay, I like that. So I went to Monash University, did arts and commerce there, and it's largely because I hadn't worked out what I wanted to do. So you do really generalist courses, and I'll give a shout out to Monash University here, because you always love, in some way. Hopefully you love the school or the university that you went to. They did a great job, and what I really loved about Monash University at the time was the social side of things. So I spoke to people who had, put down preferences and ended up at each uni, and I said, Monash is a much more social university. So that was really good for me. So as you guys come into each of your higher education facilities, think about, how do I get involved in all the extra curricular things that a university has to offer? That's actually, most of my friends weren't found from courses. They were found from, getting involved in political clubs, in cultural clubs, in, like the art society and all different sorts of things. That's where I actually found my groove, so to speak. I was one of, I think, 2 people from my high school who went to Monash Uni. So I didn't have a built network. So lots of people out there, you'll be getting offers about the time that this podcast goes up. Don't be concerned in one way or another about not going with lots of other people from your own high school to a particular, higher ed or workplace. You'll make friends, you'll find your groove, but you've got to sometimes put yourself out there and and do the most important thing you can do in any part of life, and just say hello to people. It's really good, easy introduction. Like you guys said hello to me.
Exactly. So I think that is a big issue, that just going back to your high school experience, especially with subjects. I think even in our school especially, there are people wanting to do certain subjects, but we just don't have the teachers. And we just don't know.
A lot of them have left, I think, most of them.
So I had a youth advisory committee for Point Cook. I'll be doing another one next year, so watch my Facebook. If you're not following me on Facebook and Instagram, that's your plug. So I'll do a shout out next year, and that was one of the things that the youth advisory council told me. So it's members of it were Point Cook students, high schools across the area and a little bit outside the area as well. And it was to try and give me some advice of what's going on. One of them was the council, the offerings of subjects wasn't as widespread as they would like at particular schools. So, that's one of those challenges. We had a good meeting with Minister Natalie Suleiman, who's the Minister for Youth, in the Parliament recently, to talk through what the Youth Advisory Council found out. So anyway, people should get involved next year. Have your say, bring together those ideas across the community.
Exactly. Because I think as well with our school, I believe they're adding in some more subjects next year for year 11.
I think already, I think this year or last year, they split all the subjects from year 9.
Yes.
So it's a lot more.
So you start your pathway from year 9 for eventually year 12.
It's a lot broken up now. It's not just for example, English, we do Shakespeare and what's called like a film, for example. Now there's Shakespeare in English, and then there's normal English. So it's a lot more. It's a lot more spread out.
So when I went through high school, there was just one English.
Yeah, it will be in that.
I think there was literature as well. As a separate subject, but was never really considered as a replacement for English. Everyone had to do English, and then do other additional subjects to it, which I think they've split off a little bit more now. There's flexibility.
It's a lot more freedom.
Well, I wonder. I sort of it would have been challenging for me, I reckon, because I went from that sort of maths and science side, and that was in that 9, 10, even up to year 11, and then switched across to the humanities side. So I would have, I wonder how I would have gone on that sort of choosing that track so early.
Yeah.
For a lot of people, it doesn't make a difference because you start doing extended maths and sciences early on, and you keep going. For me, it would have been a bit of a crossover. That would have been, I wonder whether I would have ended up doing history and politics and all those things if that was the case.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I think it's important that we have those two certain structures. Like, you can start off doing English and start off your kind of like a VCE journey early. But you still have the options to change later on. I think that's an important thing.
Do you cross over in terms of subjects as well? Can you do a mix of?
I think I know people, especially in our year level, some people did math methods, some people did Viscom, as a mix. Some people did history and methods, some people would have done woodwork and economics.
Great.
You can do all different types of things. A lot of people do try and focus those specifically on like a certain
certain areas,
like they do science, maths, humanities, maths, or they just do all science subjects, or they do focusing a lot more on English type subjects like literature, normal English.
What's the extended English called? Is there an extended version, or is it just still literature?
It's still literature.
Great.
So it hasn't
changed that much.
I think
for the current time.
For the current time. I think our school though next year is adding
after next year.
They're adding Englang for year 11s.
For next year?
Yeah, for next year.
Or for the 11 day year?
Yeah, for the year. It's because they're changing the whole structure at Emmanuel. So they've added in environmental science, Englang, I think Spanish is another language.
Yeah, great.
I think there might be some other ones I'm forgetting. Yeah. But they do want to add global politics later on down the line. Maybe Matt, you could teach global politics down there.
I could do a drop-in. I could do a drop-in session, but sometimes the politics is a little bit more local at the state government level.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. We'll move on now to our second question.
Yeah, certainly. Did you always want a career in politics from a young age, or did you have other career plans?
I always saw the power of politics. So I talked, I think, last time a little bit about my involvement in the disability sector, and recognising that politics is really powerful in the way that it changes lives. So, at the time I was talking about, volunteering with a person with disability, you can always help that person in front of you and support them, bring new experiences and, a better life for people. But it doesn't happen for the whole. Whereas, things like the NDIS, which are now rolled out, by a Labor government, getting reformed at the moment by a Labor government, that goes to change millions of lives. And so I always understood the power of politics. Didn't know if I'd get involved in politics. Started working in at the end of my uni degree. Applied for the Victorian Public Service. Got a job in consumer affairs, which can be a really powerful place for change and supporting people. And some of the things that go on in their lives. And started work there in the policy area. And then a few weeks into that, got a call from a member of Parliament, but at the time a staff member, for a member of Parliament, and said, "Hey, Matt, we've got this job opening up. You've been involved," because I was involved in politics at uni, and volunteering a lot in election campaigns and all the rest. And they said, "We've got a job for you. Would you like it?" And I said, "Yep, love to do that." And so I went into the boss's office at the public service and said, "It's been great. There's lots of really great people here working really hard on important projects. We were doing a lot of legislative harmonisation across the country at the time. That was one of the focuses of the area that I was involved in. And said, "Thanks very much. It's been wonderful working here, but I've got another job offer, so I'm off." And then, within a matter of, it must have been days or weeks, but not very long at all, I started working for the first time in politics. So I hadn't always thought of it as something that, was the thing that I needed to do or wanted to do, but just knew that the power of it to make change, good changes for people's lives, if the opportunity ever arose. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and, just spent my time volunteering in politics before that.
Yeah.
And after that, right? So, even though I had a day job in politics, working for a member of Parliament, my weekends, my evenings were all about volunteering to, hopefully make the community better.
So you were like kind of like a local volunteer, like
activist kind of.
That's right. Yeah. So you'd see volunteers in politics typically, just on election day, handing out material, people, and maybe even in the period before election day, doing some door knocking, doing some street stalling. But it happens all the way through the year, and some of those things are around policies. So, how do we improve the policy offering of the Labor Party? So, in the lead up to state conferences, and you'd write policy, and you'd hope that that gets adopted by the party, gets adopted into government, because all these things start with, a good idea, somebody organising to build it, just like having history as a class. Right? I had an idea and I wanted to see it happen. So I found out the way to organise it, organised it with people, and got a success with that one. Policy is a bit harder, a lot more people are convinced, but all politics starts with a good idea by someone, and then having to organise and put in the hard work to then achieve it.
Exactly.
So, and it's a thing that I encourage anyone listening to the podcast, get involved in politics. If you want to make your community better, and it doesn't matter what politics, right? So if it's Labor, Liberal, Greens, Nationals, we've been talking about a whole bunch of political parties a few moments ago, and it's really just about being involved in your community, making a difference. But have a look at each of the political parties and see what your values are, and get involved in that one, because you can change political parties a bit, but not usually entirely. So it's a lot easier to start with someone whose values already align with your own. But people should get involved in politics. It's great for changing the community.
Exactly. I think a lot of the politicians we've talked to in the past, as well in our previous interviews, they've really talked about how they really got into politics just because of community issues that they saw within the community, and they started off as community activists, and they moved on towards an actual career in politics. So I think it is really important as well that you are a voice within your community. If you do have any problems or any issues, raise them towards your local member, and you can start off your political journey via there.
And people should always get in touch with their local member of parliament. Usually they're I'd like to think that they're nice people who are generous and happy to listen to anyone in their own community, and always if you can't get in touch, if your local member, a member of the lower house like myself, for some reasons not available, there's always upper house members as well to get in touch with. But get involved, and if you've got ideas to make the community better, you've got to tell people about it and organise for it.
Exactly. We'll move on to our next question. I think you did answer this in our last interview, but who would you say is your political role model?
It's pretty hard to walk past Gough Whitlam as a pretty seminal figure in Australian politics. So, a person who, he only actually stayed in Parliament as Prime Minister for less time than Julia Gillard. And you guys would all, remember to a degree Julia Gillard and, the relatively short time she had in Parliament. Well, Gough Whitlam had less, but achieved so much, got us out of Vietnam, set up universal healthcare, universal education in terms of tertiary. So he did some of those really big projects, but he did some of those things that were just important for everyday life. So in the western suburbs of Melbourne, western suburbs of Sydney, he put sewage in, right? Not something that you think is like, amazing, but think of how life-changing that is, actually having sewage in terms of health improvements, in terms of not needing a truck to come along and, fix up the sewage all the time, like just simple things like that had a life-changing effect, particularly on people from working class backgrounds. So he's a bit of a hero, but he's also not someone, he's not perfect, right? In politics, there's no perfection. And, there's a lot of challenges that he faced both as a leader and some of the decisions as a leader. So it's not necessarily looking through these things with rose-coloured glasses, but, he'd be one I'd nominate.
What advice would you give to the youth who want to get involved in politics?
Join a political party, like always. So just have a quick look at the political parties that there are, and join the one that matches your values. Always, if you're sticking by your values, it's easier than anything else, right? And so I joined the ALP because that matched my values.
I think you did also touch on that in that last interview. I remember you said that a
the
lot
Greens
of
as well.
Yeah, the Greens.
And if I looked at it on paper, you know, the Greens have a bunch of policies at that time that fit my values as well. But I also wanted to change the system. And if you want to change the system, you join the ALP or join the Liberals or you join the Nationals. If you want to talk from the sidelines, you know, it's that, you know, and I saw it in no greater example than the CPRS, which was at the time Rudd was putting forward some changes to the economy to make sure that we strengthened our environmental credentials, ensured there was a way of lifting our reduction of carbon. And the Greens said no, we don't want this, which most people would say, well, why? They said, well, it's not perfect, it's not good enough. But they misunderstood the incrementalism of some of these really big changes to policy. So, you know, it's those sorts of things that confirm that we want a government that can do things, and not always perfect. Like, no government is perfect, but, you know, keep on doing things every day, every week, every year that make lives better. So that's why it's an easy choice to be part of ALP.
I guess what you were saying there as well is that, you know, mine for you as well, you wanted to be involved more broadly in a government, and I guess the Greens to a lesser extent probably won't ever be like a majority government by themselves. I mean, it could happen, but
look, and that's the thing with politics. Like, anything can change, but you know, I've not seen their willingness to take up the responsibilities of government.
Yeah,
which means that you have to balance choices. And I remember one election where it was put to me that their transport policies of the Greens would expand the entire state budget. So no schools, no hospitals, no money for the environment or parks. Of course, you know, that's completely unsustainable, but that's the sort of thing you can do if you're not seeking government. In government, you've got to make choices between, well, does this road go ahead or does this hospital go ahead, and what's the timing on both, and, you know, what's our level of debt that we're willing to sustain, you know, so all of these things to build those projects, you know, that's all questions for government.
Yeah.
And that's, you know, that's the balances that have. So, you know, you can find sometimes that difficult choices need to be made because there's limited funds.
Yeah, and I guess as well the Greens, as a political party as a whole, I guess they normally do like to focus a lot more towards certain issues more than others, and to like publicise them more and to get their voter base, especially their inner city voter base. I guess a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, look, all political parties prioritise communications on the things that they want to talk about, right? So that's, you know, you only get, if you look at the news tonight, you'll see any politician who is speaking there will have probably a sentence that they say to camera. So you've got a premium on getting your line out about the issue that's most important to you, or that you want to talk about that day. So, you know, if the news camera turned up today and they said, hey Matt, tell us what you want to talk about today, I'll tell them about the Wyndham Law Courts. So they're built in East Werribee, 13 law courts, a couple of $100 million worth of money towards it. Biggest law courts outside the CBD. How many sentences was that?
3 or 4.
Too many for the television, right? So, you know, and I wanted to say a lot more about it, right? But you've got one line. So when you've got one line, you're limited always. Unlike the 15 or 20 minute speech in the Parliament.
Exactly. And not many people get to see that 15-20 minute speech.
Very sadly.
Except those Parliament avids who.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And good luck to them, I say.
So we go to the next one?
Yeah, we go to the next question.
In your Parliament site, it states that you have worked for a number of state and Commonwealth members of Parliament. Could you share your experience working with these former members of Parliament?
Yeah. So, and some are still current.
Oh, really?
Some are still in the Parliament. Yeah.
And how did it prepare you for your career as a politician?
Of course. So I guess you know when you work in politics, you see how different people do their politics and their engagement with the community. So you just pick up things over time. You learn good techniques for letter writing. You learn good techniques for engaging with people positively. So lots of that is things that I picked up. I want to give a particular shout out. So one of the MPs I worked for is Peter Murphy, who just recently passed away, the member for Dunkley. A really amazing MP, and so a big shout out for her legacy, which is involved in a lot of Parliament and the committee reports, but just in her way of building a great community and a great love of community. And if you get the chance to look at some of the speeches that were made about her for this week, for I think it was Wednesday last week, people should have a look. If you want to watch any Parliament, watch the condolence motions that she did. Watch her first speech, which was just a cracking first speech that set out her ambitions for the community and change in politics. So you work for some really great, inspiring people, and I was very fortunate to work for Peter Murphy just for a brief period of time.
Yeah, I think I did watch one of the speeches made by Keith Wallahan about that was a really good speech.
Yeah, it's there's a reason lots of people were able to say good things about her, because she was a really good person. So she'll be greatly missed.
Yeah,
greatly missed.
Any other politicians you want to shout out that you used to work for?
I've worked for a lot of them over time. So if I go through names, I'll have someone disappointed that I didn't talk about them. But I think lots of people are very different in their approaches to politics, approaches to the community. But the one thread that joined and unified all of them was that they cared about their communities, and they wanted to represent them well, and they wanted to see the lives of people in their communities improved, and they worked really hard at it. So big shout out to all those MPs that I did work for teaching me good habits of getting up every day and thinking about what's the thing that I can do today to make this community just that little bit better. But that was the real thread between all of them.
Yeah.
Are you guys thinking about working in politics yourself?
Yeah, a little bit, I guess.
Yeah.
Have
you started volunteering in political campaigns?
Yeah, a little bit. I spent some time, down at local Western Metropolitan Region member at Trung office. It's nice.
Yeah.
It's good.
Me and Trung spend a whole bunch of time at different events together.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Really nice person.
Yeah, he's a really good guy. Yeah. So, maybe Tobias, you can do some volunteering work down the line.
Yeah, maybe you will see.
You should volunteer for David Erdeschank, legalize cannabis.
There you go. We're getting some revelations in this podcast. Tell us more.
You will see what happens. Yeah. You will see what happens.
Yeah.
Okay. No more stories to tell. Come on, when are the interviewers meant to reveal a little bit?
About
give a little bit. Yeah.
We like to be a little bit secretive.
So down in Trung Lu's office, what's the thing that you've learned most?
Last couple of days we've just been sending Christmas cards off.
Yes, great.
A little bit of research stuff. It's been good. Just being in an EO's office.
Yeah.
Just actually being there, like experiencing what it's like. It's actually been really, really good.
And you had many constituents come in the door?
Couple, not many. But we've got people ringing up here and there with questions and that sort of thing. And then I think down the line as well we might write constituency questions and that sort of stuff.
Yeah, fantastic. So, great.
Tobias, you should volunteer for Matt.
You're welcome, always. So we're
Well, it's a bit harder for me because I have a stutter.
That's okay.
Yeah, and I have what's called some disabilities that I've already said on the previous podcast, such as dyslexia and dysgraphia, which can make it harder for people to actually understand and learn.
So one of the things that I was really it was pretty good to be involved in the last week of Parliament was the ALP's launched this Disability Action Plan That's how do we make sure that more people with disability are involved in politics? If you think about a big number of people with disabilities across our community, it's not tens or hundreds or thousands, it's millions. Right? If you're not engaged with, if you're not listening to life experiences, if you're not working out how people can be engaged, in politics in a really meaningful way, and you might know of Tony Clark, who's been a real champion for disability with an ALP, a candidate multiple times for the ALP. Political parties are representative of the community. So if you want to get involved here, there are always things to do. The next thing I'm doing, and it might be after this podcast has come out, I'll be down at train stations giving out candy canes, wishing people a happy Christmas.
Oh, we might see you down there.
So you might see me down there, and that's a job everyone can do.
I think as we said before, it's always important to get involved in a political party, whatever. Even if it's Victorian Socialists or even
whatever floats your boat.
Exactly, whatever any issue.
Whatever matches you.
I think that's something that we've really, really found out a lot, especially interviewing politicians from all across the political spectrum, from Liberal, Labour, legalised cannabis, National. We haven't got any UAP, One Nation people, but down the line maybe. Down the line.
Real shame that.
Yeah, it's a real shame. But I think that's something that we have found a lot. Like a lot of these politicians, even though they're from different political parties, have different views on things, they all really just want to make their communities better. So,
And just people think about different ways of achieving that. That's a lot of, how people get there. The journey that people can take in improving their communities.
Another question that we got from one of our friends was...
Oh, yes, okay. We're taking requests.
We've got constituency questions.
Yeah,
some questions
I love it.
Good. And even me and Tobias as well have some questions that we want to answer as well.
So we're keeping to a clock here, so you better get them in rapid fire.
What are your plans going forward, and do you have any specific goals and milestones you wish to hit in the next couple of years?
Yeah, certainly. So we set out a pretty big election agenda, and one of the fundamentals is you've got to try and deliver on every single one of those pieces of election commitments. So one of the big ones for here is Central Avenue and Point Cook Road, the intersection there. And you'd know it well. Other people who are
he knows it very well.
On the podcast may not have heard about it. So it's when you come off the freeway into Point Cook, and there's a double roundabout, there's a McDonald's there. Most people will know it as the McDonald's exit into Point Cook, but it comes into Point Cook Road and rolls over the bridge into Laverton and then the freeway entrance towards town. So that's a really big project. It'll be almost pretty close to $100 million to upgrade the intersection. We've started the work this year in terms of engaging with the community. The engineers are really excited about this project because they usually get to upgrade pretty simple intersections.
Like the one Snage Road also, that one's also getting upgraded at the moment.
That is getting upgraded right now. I'll come to that in a sec. But that Central Avenue Point Cook one's a really complex intersection because you've got freeway exit and entrance, crossing a bridge, having another major thoroughfare in Central Avenue, also known as Queen Street, and another major thoroughfare, Point Cook Road. So there's a lot of entrances into one intersection. So I'm hopeful that they'll get the plans, over the course of the next probably 6 months, and then we've got to go and do it. It's about that one's fundamentally that project about making that area safe and easy to navigate because. For people who are driving, it's dangerous, like we've had incidents there, but it's almost impossible if you're on your bike, if you're walking in that area. So it's changed. Should have changed 30 years ago, but I'm here for a year so far and we're starting to make those changes. So that's one of the big ones.
It's also for the people who live in that area, it's a bit hard to even get into a house because going like down that road, I see houses.
Are you in Altona Meadows or the Point Cook side?
Point Cook.
You're on Point Cook side.
So it's a little hard to actually, for those people, I assume, to get into their houses.
And people, Central Avenue this applies to as well, but people are wanting to get home or get out of Point Cook or out of Altona Meadows and onto the freeway. So everyone's in a bit more of a rush than they need to be. And so, yeah, those people who need to turn into their houses. So I just encourage people to take care. You know, soon the site, you know, I look forward to when the site's actually started the works there. And then I can't wait till the project's finished. So, and Sneeds Road, Point Cook Road, that project's underway. We'll finish that next year. So we've done a lot of all the underground work.
Finish that next year, hopefully, without any setbacks.
No, I'll look, you know, big projects do get setbacks. You know, I think we all would like to think that the pipe systems and all those were perfectly structured when you start out a project, but not always. So would have loved it done by the end of this year, but it's not going to be the case. We've had a bit, for those who've travelled through the area, they've seen that it's been a construction site for a good chunk of this period, and again, it's about safety. Right, like we always understand that, you know, we've got to prioritise safety on the roads, and we've all got a part to play in that in terms of how we drive, but also there's a part to play in it in terms of busy intersection like that. How do we get the traffic lights in there? I'm sure you're going to put a link up to the Sneeds Road, Point Cook Road, Vic Roads website, and that can come up. Yeah, great. And the Central Avenue, the big build that's going on, Central Avenue, Point Cook Road. So people, you know, who are looking at home and see a bit more about the project, and on the Sneeds Road, Point Cook Road, give a shout out to, if you go scroll to the bottom, you'll see the pictures of what it's going to look like, and that looks really good.
I have a couple more things I'd like to ask, especially about the area. I do remember in the election campaign you were talking a lot about having a review of the bus timetables in Victoria.
So I didn't commit to reviewing the bus timetables. What I'm trying to do is, and this is across the whole western suburbs.
I feel like it is a pretty big issue, especially because I think, especially for train timetables, this is one, I'd say for me personally, this is one of the bigger issues in the western suburbs. Like trains come into Williams Landing every 10 minutes or so.
Which is good.
Yeah, which is really good.
And turn up and go. That's what you actually want, is you know, it doesn't matter when you arrive. There's going to be a train that you can get on, and if you just miss one, you're not so worried because there's another one in, you know, less than 10 minutes by the time you're
And Prince Express, you know, it's only 30 minutes into Southern Cross, so it's really good.
It's the getting off, is it?
It's the actually getting the bus, which is the big issue, I think.
Straight afterwards.
Yeah, because you know, if you're coming back like at 12 p.m. from the city, you've got to wait 40 minutes.
That's right.
Even during peak hours, it's 20 minutes, and the buses are pretty inconsistent when they arrive. So that's
that's right, and even harder in evenings.
Yeah,
even harder on weekends.
I think buses even stop coming in after 9 p.m. I think.
There'll be some lines that go not late enough.
There are a couple of buses late then, but
that's it. Yeah.
And so that's a big challenge, and it's one that I keep on engaging. The public transport minister's actually just changed over relatively recently with the change from Daniel Andrews to Jacinta Allen. I'm a frequent flyer for the minister's office when it comes to public transport, and talking to them about what are the short-term improvements, what are those, you know, simple improvements that we can make to improve the buses, whilst also keeping an eye to what can we do as a broader piece of work on buses. But challenging, not easy necessarily to get that right. And if we think about where we started the conversation, 50 people in 1996 and more than 70,000 today.
Yeah,
and
huge population growth.
One of the things I'm always mindful of is how do we build our infrastructure in our communities, most of Point Cook's filled out, but not all of it, to make sure we take into account how do we get good, easy transport routes. Some of the pre-election conversations, particularly transport experts, about straightening routes, making them more direct, because most of the time, when we're thinking about Point Cook suburb residents, it's getting to the station in the morning, getting home from the station at night. That's typically, or you know, to education, you know, work, education is typically your typical travel during the week here. So how do we make that? How do we strengthen that and make that quicker?
Yeah,
I'm pretty mindful of that. That's another thing that came out of the Youth Advisory Council, which people can join next year. Look out for the Facebook.
Always advertising it.
That's right, you got it.
Another one, actually very close to here. Any word on the Point Cook Community Hospital?
Yes. So I don't. Well, soon.
Soon.
Coming soon on that one.
No,
you're welcome to chuck on the website for the community hospital so people can see where it's up to and what's next.
We will make sure
for people who are not in the area. So it's on Dunnings Road, next to a McDonald's again. We're doing a little bit of conversation about McDonald's.
One over there, I think.
One over there. Right there. So, and that's one of the in the developed parts of Point Cook. That's one of the last big blocks that we were able to secure. Community hospitals, so it'll do things like chemo, it'll do things like dialysis, day surgery, not those things that you need an emergency department for. Right, so emergency, if you need an emergency, keep going to Werribee Mercy. But that'll be double the size of the Werribee Emergency Department, but won't have it here because, also who wants lights and sirens in the built up areas. So it'll be a smaller hospital, a community hospital, but let's look to next year. Coming soon. More to say on that one.
And then lastly, I was going to talk about the suburban rail loop.
Go for it. Yeah.
I think the Western.
I'm going to do last calls for questions as well.
Here's the last one.
Oh, this is the last one.
This is the last one.
Yeah.
So especially we've got the eastern section, northern section, which are confirmed dates. We don't have
Is it northern one confirmed dates?
I think so. It's like 20. I think I saw online it was about 2034 something.
I think they've got broad dates.
Broad dates. Yeah.
And we've just started to do some contracting in SRL East.
But SLL West and the SLL Airport section, it doesn't have any confirmed dates, and I think I've heard that it's been scrapped a bit or postponed to a later date.
Scrapped is strong.
Yeah, scrapped.
I'll look, chuck up the website here so people can see in writing for themselves. If we think about the size of Melbourne, the physical size, but then the population size, it's booming. So we had, I think, the last stats I saw was we've increased our population by 2.4%. Over the last 12 months.
We're now the biggest city in Australia, so...
They've redefined Melton into the boundary.
Oh, really?
And so that's what made it the biggest city. But a 2.4% increase in population is massive in a single year. And we see it all around us in the western suburbs all the time. So we're going to have to keep building public transport, and part of that is orbital links. That's really normal for most cities around the world to have orbital links of public transport. I wouldn't have thought, the cost is a lot of money, but I wouldn't have thought it's controversial to have orbital links that link up. There is a train line that's going in right now, and these stations and train testing going on in the city, and that's part of really big project building. It means that you can free up capacity. All of these things free up capacity. So we talked about 10-minute turn up and go trains. Those trains are often always possible because we've upgraded level crossings. There'll be even more capacity in the system once we get the new train line going through the city. More capacity in the whole system with orbital rail. It's pretty normal stuff for most cities in the world. Pretty uncontroversial. I think if you ask today if the city loop was a valuable investment, people would say yes, it was a very valuable investment because it allowed people to get around the city, but also for train lines to cut through the city and across and out the other end. So if these big infrastructure projects in the time might be controversial, but I think probably people can accept the idea that a train line that connects all the other train lines, connects big employment districts, that's going to be valuable. It's going to be valuable for the future of what will be a massive city.
Right then. So we'll now get on to technically our final question.
Final question.
So,
okay.
What's one piece of advice you'd give to students in 2024, especially those, including us who are studying university or those who are studying high school?
Have fun and make lots of really good connections with other people. Put yourself out there and just say hello to people. Introduce yourself, and you'll find your groove really quickly. For those people who are doing high school, and for those people who just got their results, it's not going to be the end of the world no matter what the result is. you'll find a really great pathway in life. And sometimes it takes, you know, a couple of steps over. You know, I started out in the public service, then ended up in politics. Wasn't expected, but you know, I got a call, you know, made the choice, you know, and you know, really grateful for, you know, all of that that's led to here. So just as much as possible, you know, don't get too stressed about year 12. I know it's a stressful year, but there's always other choices and options, no matter the result. And good luck for you guys in higher education this year. I hope it goes, or next year, sorry. I hope it goes really well. And wish everyone on your podcast a happy new year if it goes out before the new year.
Hopefully.
And if it goes out after the new year, happy new year.
Yeah.
Thanks so much, guys.
Yeah, that's all our questions. Again, thank you to Matt for joining us. And yeah, hopefully see you guys in our next video.